right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Vinnie Cappetta, and tonight is all about how to get to your goals and what might be stopping you from getting to your goals. And tonight we're going to look at why willpower isn't going to be enough to get you where you want to go. So some people join me here because they're in a season of grief. Some people join me here because they have some kind of trauma or loss. Or maybe you're just here because you have a goal that you want to pursue and you just haven't been able to make it to that goal or make any progress to that goal. Or maybe you made some progress and then you slipped way back. But, you know, I'm just glad that you're here tonight. I'm glad that you're here because you're going to hear some things that are going to help you. And while we're waiting for a few more people to join us, maybe we can make this a little bit interactive. Do me a favor and drop into the chat your name and like where you're from. And then tell me about one area where you're praying for a breakthrough. All right, your name, where are you from? And tell me one area that you're praying that you might be able to break through in this coming year, 2026. I'd love to hear about that. So later when we get into the particulars of how to apply what I'm going to talk about tonight, it'll be really helpful to be able to apply it to the areas that you want to break through in. So if you could help me with that, that would be awesome. All right. I am part of a group called Check Your Compass. It's a ministry. And what we do is we offer counseling here in Massachusetts, in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, where the start of the Boston Marathon is. And we also provide coaching to people from all over the country. The coaching that we provide is around mental fitness topics, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is mental fitness. We host free webinars like this because we want to support spiritual and emotional growth through what we call mental fitness. And, we have really two areas of focus at Check Your Compass. One is intensive counseling. That's where I sit down with the same person for one day up to 5 days. And I call it unpacking the backpack. We all have a backpack of stuff that we've been carrying since we were kids. And some of that stuff is heavy. And there are a few ways to get the stuff out of that backpack. I happen to just know a handful of them. So I sit with people and help them work through and unpacking those backpacks of emotional stuff that they've been carrying. And the other thing that we do is mental fitness coaching. And of course, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So if you're struggling to reach your goals, you've come to the right place tonight. So go ahead and settle in, take a deep breath, and we're going to get started here. If you haven't already dropped your name into the chat, do that for me and tell me where you're from. And then tell me one area that you're praying for breakthrough for this year. And that will help us as we get later into our program so I can make this applicable to what you're working through. So if someone said you want to break through in establishing a business. Another person said you don't want to have any fear of relationships. Another person said you want to deal with job insecurity. Okay. And then developing goals around spiritual and professional development. And then another one came in here to looking to break through in some non-helpful patterns that have been limiting my future vision. Wonderful. Thank you all for doing that for me. That'll be really helpful. I'm going to come back to that a little later on. Well, let me start with an honest question. How many of you have entered any year, not just this year? Maybe you were full of faith and you were full of big intentions, but then you found yourself drifting back into the same old patterns by the time February or March came around. I think the whole exercise industry is based on this, right? They get you to sign up for a year and then everybody comes in January. And then after that, they don't have any work to do. They just sit around and use the money that you gave them. So you may have even prayed about what you're going to do. You may even have planned about what you're going to do. And you may have even tried to be more disciplined or more consistent, but something went wrong. There's something invisible that's keeping you from making progress. And because the problem isn't that you don't love God enough, although we certainly could all love God more than we do now. And it's probably not that you're lazy, but and it's probably not that you don't lack willpower because some of us have a lot of willpower. But there's something deeper, I think, that's happening below the surface. And once you see this, breakthrough becomes possible for you. So let's do this together. In the chat, if you haven't already, tell me one area that you're praying for a breakthrough this year. Maybe just one word or a phrase or something. Someone just said, breaking through, advancing into my destiny. Okay, where does God want me to go? Who does He want me to be? Um, Someone else said relationship. Yeah, tell us what is it about relationships that you want to be better? That would be helpful as we get a little farther along here. All right, I'm going to make you a big promise today. It, it's not a willpower problem. What you're dealing with is a battle in your mind and in your spirit. And today I'm going to show you how to win that battle with God's help. And I'm going to show you a powerful tool called mental fitness that's going to help you. And by the end of our session, you're going to be able to see why your goals keep stalling, what's really going on underneath the surface, and then also how to start clearing out those internal blocks. Because a lot of us know that the internal blocks are there. We might not know exactly what they are or have a complete clarity, but we don't know how to clear them. I know because I was one of those people a few years ago. So if that sounds good, if that sounds like something that would be helpful to you, give me an emoji or a comment or a response there. That would be helpful. Somebody said, I want clarity for what to do next. Another person said, I want to be on God's plan. Yeah, and somebody gave a hand clap. Okay, good. So I'm from Check Your Compass Ministries. I'm Dr. Vinnie Cappetta, and I've walked through loss, and I've walked through grief, and I've walked through trauma and anxiety. And I know that's probably some of the reasons that some of you came tonight. So I want you to know that I'm in the boat with you. I lost my mother and my stepfather to very violent deaths back in 1984. It was just before my 11th birthday. And so I know what it feels like to battle with goals and willpower only to fail miserably. Like the first 9 years after my mother died, I I had such a difficult time getting out of my own way. But over the years, I've also experienced real renewal, and I've walked with hundreds of people and spent the last 30 years helping people navigate issues related to breaking through the barriers. And one of the things I've learned is that with God, all things are possible. And I think that's probably why you showed up tonight. You probably know that. And hopefully tonight we'll experience that, not just say it, but actually experience it. And I want you to experience it by thinking about something like, what if? What if by the end of this year, you could look back with gratitude and not a lot of regret? Would that be a good thing? Because God is clearing out what was blocking your breakthrough. If that's you, let me know by giving me a response. You know, I want you to imagine with me that it's December 31st of the end of this year, and you're reflecting back on your year. But this time you're not frustrated. You're not burned out. You're not beating yourself up. You feel grateful. Look at the smile on your face. Look at how your shoulders aren't slumped over as much, but you're opened up to God and to the world because you finally worked with God to clear the inner clutter that was blocking your growth. You actually followed through on what God has been putting in your heart. The good work that He started in you, you're letting Him complete it. What would that look like? And also, what would that feel like? That would be great, wouldn't it? So that's where we're headed tonight. And I hope that you're starting to find a little bit of hope because that's what we came here for tonight is some hope. But I want to be real with you. There was a season in 2023 where I honestly believed that if I just read more scripture, if I just pray a little bit harder, maybe if I just fasted a little bit longer, I would finally see change. But deep down, I was drained. I was trying to help people, after 3 years of COVID, I was spiritually, emotionally, and mentally drained. And the problem was not that I didn't love God enough. The problem was that I was fighting a spiritual battle. And guess how I was fighting that spiritual battle? I was fighting it with fleshly tools. I was fighting it with my own strengths that I built up over the years. I wasn't really letting God take the lead and help me. And that's when I came across Romans 12:2, where it says that you can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I didn't realize at that moment that I was trying to help people every day renew their minds. But it was the guy in the mirror, the guy who was helping everybody else, needed to have his mind renewed. And then Ephesians 6 says, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against spiritual forces. And there were spiritual forces at work that were messing with me getting a specific project done. So it's for most of us, motivation isn't the issue. It's often a spiritual issue. And I needed a spiritual and a practical solution. And I'm actually going to show you tonight what transformed things for me. And I'm going to show you quantitatively what happened with my brain when we get to the very end. So you're going to want to hang on for that. So the one big idea tonight is that you don't need to hustle more. You need to train your mind and your spirit to work with you and not against you, to work with God's will, not against it. Because right now, for most people, their own mind is the biggest obstacle, but it doesn't have to be that way. And the thing is about achievement, which we're kind of thinking about here at the beginning of a new year, as far as achievement goes, achievement equals your potential times your mental fitness. All of us have amazing potential here. We're all made in the image of God. So I know we all have tremendous potential. We all have tremendous potential, probably for different kinds of things, which is great because that's what makes this world amazing is that we have different gifts and different skills and different interests. But along with that potential, if your mental fitness isn't strong, then you're not going to achieve what God wants you to achieve. So, how much of your potential are you actually using? If your inner world is constantly being hijacked by things like fear and stress or even sabotage, then your potential gets cut down. So that's what mental fitness is going to help you build up. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. And the first thing I want to start with is a little secret. And that secret is that willpower was never meant to be your source. Why? Because willpower runs out after a while. And God never intended for you to rely on your own strength. Zechariah 4:6 says that it's not by our might, it's not by our power, but by God's Spirit that we should be living our lives. Let me give you a picture that might help understand why that scripture is so important. Imagine that you're on a beach and you're building sandcastles for a competition. You're doing great, but every 30 minutes, what happens? A wave comes and wipes out half of what you built. Most people respond by trying to build faster, but the smart thing to do would be to build a wall to stop the waves from coming and messing with your creations. So that's what we're going to try to do tonight. We're not trying to build faster. We're trying to learn how to work with God's Spirit to protect what it is that we're actually building so it doesn't get washed away with the water. So willpower was not meant to be your source. That's helpful to know. Secret number two is that you have a spiritual enemy in your head. The spiritual enemy in your head are things like the inner voices that you hear, the inner judge inside of you, or that part of you that part of you is always judging you or judging other people or judging your circumstances. These circumstances are bad and these circumstances are good. Or how about the pleaser? I must please everybody. I must do a really good job to make sure everybody's pleased with me and the outcome of all these things in my work and in my family. Or like the avoider. If I could just avoid that person or avoid that conversation or avoid that conflict, then I'll be happy. Or the controller that says, I need everything to go a certain way. And if it doesn't go that certain way, I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to be stressed. These are what we call saboteurs. And if you don't know what your saboteur is yet, I'm going to have Quinn place a link into the chat for you. It's checkyourcompass.org/sabotage. So checkyourcompass.org and then / and then the word sabotage. All right, so that'll get dropped into the chat. And if you haven't already taken our little assessment, it takes about 5 minutes and it's going to give you a wealth of information about what are some of the things that are blocking you from getting where you want to go. These are not just mental habits, these are actually spiritual distortions. These saboteurs are serving up lies that sound so much like the truth, like counterfeit dollar bills, and we can't tell the difference. The enemy doesn't always attack us with external chaos. Sometimes it's a whisper in our head that we're not enough, that we can't do something, or that God's displeased with us because we're not trying hard enough, or something like that. And a lot of these things can actually sound pretty spiritual, which is the weirdest thing. But we are called to respond differently. 2 Corinthians 10 and verse 5 says it this way. We take every thought captive and we make it obedient to Christ. That's our job as a Christian. That's the active part of our faith, is that whenever we have a thought, we line it up with the word of God to see if it matches up 100%. And if it doesn't, we make it obedient to Jesus. And we say, this thought, get thee behind me thought. And you don't have to be a prisoner of these voices. I didn't know that a couple of years ago. I was stuck in a echo chamber in my head. You can learn to notice these things more often, and then you can disarm them in God's power with God's Spirit. The Spirit is made to walk alongside you, a parakletos, or the one who walks alongside of us, the one who's right there with us in the battle. Jesus says that he himself is yoked up with us and that our power comes from him. So that's what we're looking to tap into. And later I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So that was secret two, that you have this spiritual enemy, and that enemy is actually in your head, in your mind, messing with you through these thoughts. And then the last secret that I want to share with you is that your breakthrough begins with peace and not pressure. So you don't need to force your way into change. The idea of no pain, no gain might have some benefit somewhere, but not as it relates to the things that we're talking about. You need to pause your way into peace. Pause your way into peace. That's what we call mental fitness reps. We call these PQ reps. PQ is a shortened version of positive intelligence. And the mental fitness reps that we're going to show you right now are PQ reps, or positive intelligence reps, because it's like going into a gym, but for your brain, not for your body. These 10-second mental fitness exercises we're going to show you help you quiet the noise in your brain and reconnect you with clarity and peace. So we're going to try some together. And Quinn is one of my coworkers, and here he is. He is going to help us slow down for a few minutes and help us to be still and know that God is God. Quinn, take over.
Sweet, let's do it. I'm Quinn. I work for Check Your Compass, so been on working for about a year and a half. But yeah, let's do some of these PQ reps and shift away from some of those kind of mental strongholds and into peace. So I'm gonna invite all of you to close your eyes with me, and we're gonna shift our attention away kind of from the frustrations and anxieties of this week and focus instead on our bodies that God has designed us with. And we're going to just start by feeling the weight of our body in our chairs or seats. Now notice the natural rhythm of your breath as air moves in and out of your nostrils. Let go of thoughts as they come and just reshift back to that rise and fall in rhythm of your breath. Now take a few deeper breaths and just notice the rise and fall of your chest and stomach. Now shift your attention to the sounds around you. Locate a sound that's far away and just try hearing it. Now switch your attention to the sounds closest to you, perhaps even the sound of your breath. Now pay attention to your hands and rub two fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel all the ridges of your fingertips. Notice texture shifts from one area to another. Now rub all the fingertips of one hand against the fingertips and palm of the other and just be fascinated with all the sensations of touch. Now come back to the rising and falling of your chest and stomach with each breath. You may now open your eyes.
Great. Thank you, Quinn, for your help with that. I'm curious what you notice going on in your body right now after doing that for a few minutes. Drop me some comments in the chat to let me know what you're noticing right now about your body and what that experience was like for you. What are you noticing? Very peaceful, no awareness of any stress. All right. What else? The people noticing it was hard to keep my mind from flitting around. All right. That is totally normal. About half the time that we do these kind of exercises, we might find our mind pinballing around. Totally normal. Feel dialed down. Okay. Good. Anything else you want to share? Drop it into the chat. What is one small shift that you could make in the area of your life that you mentioned at the beginning if your mind was operating more from peace and less from panic? What's one small shift that you could make in that area of your life that you want to? If your mind was operating from peace and not panic. Can you imagine that? That's what we want to show you how to do. So I'm going to go back to where we started and see if I could show you how to use these PQ reps, mental fitness reps, for the issues that you brought to the table today. So someone said you're establishing a business. I've done that, and so I know some of the things you're going to face as you get to do that. You may encounter a lot of thoughts about yourself and whether or not you're good enough to start a business or whether or not you have the skills that you need, or maybe if is this God's will or not, maybe some confusion. There are lots of things that are going to get in your way in the starting of that business. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. Every time you notice one of those things, do one of these exercises. All right. If you don't remember the things that Quinn just had you do, if you drop me your email into the chat, I'll make sure that you get a list of all of the things that Quinn just did with us. So if you want to drop your email there, I'll send you a list of these so you can do them. So every time in the building up of that business, you encounter an obstacle or you find yourself stressed or you find yourself having a negative thought, stop, do some of these reps, rub your fingers together, pay attention to your breathing, feel your feet on the floor, and see how that changes your experience, because then you can process that experience with the Lord once you get back into your body. So someone said you have a fear of relationships. Okay. So when I'm struggling in relationships, one of the things that I'll do is I will do PQ reps on the person in front of me. So let's say I'm in a Zoom meeting and someone's irritating me by whatever they're doing. I'll look over at them. I'll look at the color of their hair. I look at the color of their eyes, look at the color of their shirt. I look in their background. Oh, look, they have a cute cat or whatever, right? And I just focus on one thing at a time in their background or on their person. That helps me dial into their experience, their sphere, and helps me dial into that person so that I'm super present to that person instead of like floating off into Neverland where I probably want to go because I don't want to have to deal with the person. So that is something that might be able to help you with relationships if you're feeling fear. Someone else mentioned dealing with job insecurity. So there are a lot of things that are tied to our work. So much of our identity can be tied up in that. So if you're having any feelings about who you are as a person, your identity, every time you notice them, I'm going to encourage you to do these exercises. When it comes to getting jobs, sometimes there's a lot of the hoops that we have to jump through, a lot of meetings, interviews, and things like that. Before every interview or before you take any actions regarding your employment, I want to encourage you to do some of these exercises. It's going to help you feel better. It's going to quiet that survival part of your brain and fire up the thriving part of your brain, which you're going to need for finding a job, keeping a job, whatever the job insecurity is. Someone else said, in Quinn, jump in here if you have any thoughts about any of these. Another person said you want to develop goals around spiritual and professional development. All right, very similar to the job insecurity. Professional development is maybe you have a job, but you want to get better at it and you want to develop your skills. And I think a lot of us can feel like that imposter syndrome, like we're doing our job and we're doing the best we can, but we wonder, is it enough, right? And so professional development sometimes can be like chasing, climbing this ladder, and we never know, do we quite ever get to the top? So, uh, what are some PQ reps, Quinn, that we might give to that person? Any
Um, Trying to think. I feel like a lot of the time, a lot of PQ reps that are keeping your attention on something for a prolonged amount of time. Because so much of the time our mind gets off attention and like hitting some of the stuff on like spiritual growth and PQ reps. I was like going through funny enough like articles today with some stuff related, but there's about five Christian authors in the past 10 years who are actually like integrating like emotions into their discipleship and
Yes.
also going through research of like church programs not producing people who like love God and love other people and how we need to capture like emotions in our in our spiritual formation and our growth and mental fitness helping with that. And I think like PQ reps that really help with that spiritual growth is there's these certain ones where it's like you're just labeling. Um, so like you're just breathing in and out and you're labeling what your mind begins to wander to. So it's like I'm trying to just breathe in and out with an anchor PQ rep. So I'm just like breath, breath, breath. But then my mind eventually wanders off. Okay, now I'm thinking about this worry. I pause and I bring it back to breath, breath, breath. Mind wanders off, and I'm actually like just tracking like what am I actually concerned about right now, kind of at the deep heart level, and seeing what's bubbling up actually during that PQ rep.
Yeah. So then that's great for like spiritual development.
Yep.
Before you read the Bible, before you pray, you can do some of these exercises. It'll help you tune into whatever that spiritual development piece is you're doing. Yeah. And I was thinking about some things that, in terms of professional development, I want to think of like, who is the kind of person I'm becoming? I'm in my personal development, I'm becoming the kind of person who will be a better people helper in my case, right? So I might have a little mantra. Lord, I'm doing this so that I can serve you better. And so if I'm getting stressed out about the professional developments, I got to get so many, I got to get 30 of these every 2 years for my profession. That can be a little bit stressful. Lord, I'm doing this so I can be a better servant of yours. And I'm going to keep coming back to that. And that phrase is going to help me zone into my why. Why am I doing this? All right. Then someone else said non-helpful patterns that are limiting my future vision. Okay. So every time you notice those unhelpful patterns, then so what's going to help you notice what the unhelpful patterns are by doing these exercises about 15 minutes a day. The more you do these, the more present focus you're going to be, the less regretting of the past and worrying about the future you're going to do. So think about these exercises like working with real money. You're working with real money in the present here. And every time you do that, when something comes that's not real money or that's not present focused, you're going to notice it more. So it's going to be really helpful to notice the patterns if you're doing these exercises. And then every time you notice some unhealthy pattern in your life, then come back and do these exercises and then say, Lord, what is it? What is it about this unhealthy pattern? What are you teaching me? What are you trying to show me? What's the gift you're trying to give me in this moment? All right, so I think we handled many of those questions here. So I'm going to move us along here because I want to show you what's really important in terms of you getting where you need to go. And that's illustrated here in this slide. So we're going to talk about the breakthrough now, right? Because for most people, the real problem isn't effort. We've been putting a lot of effort in, it's the interference. If you want to throw me a football down the field, I may be able to catch it. But if you put a 6'2", 250-pound fast guy on me, I'm going to have trouble catching that ball. And that's what we're dealing with here. So back to the formula that we mentioned at the beginning, which is achievement equals potential times mental fitness. The research shows that there's a tipping point. When your mind operates from peace and clarity and focus at least 75% of the time, everything changes. 91% of people above that line report better stress management. They're handling stress better. 85% of people there feel noticeably happier. I took one person through the program that I'm going to tell you about at the end of tonight. I took her through this program and she said, I'm happy all the time now. And she was frustrated with her job, frustrated with relationships. She was in a tough state. And she doubled her mental fitness, like 100% better mental fitness at the end than at the beginning. 90% of people will say that they have more mental and emotional energy when they get to this tipping point. So here's the hard truth that nobody wants to hear tonight. Only 20% of people live above that tipping point. I have very rarely seen anyone take our assessment and them score above 75. That means 80% of us are walking around with self-sabotage, draining half of our effort every single day. That's where I was a couple of years ago. So we're building sandcastles and the waves just keep washing them away. If you're wondering where you are with that 75% equation, the good news is you can find out. So, in a minute, I'm going to put on the screen the assessment link, but I'll have Quinn put it in the notes there in the chat for us. It's checkyourcompass.org/assessment. So if you could drop that in for us, that would be great. We're going to offer you this free assessment that measures your current level of mental fitness. It's going to show you how much your survival brain is being activated versus how much your thriving brain is being activated. And like I said, most of us are sort of a 50-50. We want to get that thriving brain up to about 75% and get your survival brain down around 25% because that's the tipping point. Okay, so this will be really helpful for you to have a baseline from today or tonight or tomorrow when you take it, the baseline, so you know where you're beginning and then see if you can break through, see if you can get to that 75%. And we're going to give you at least one option of how to do that. So here's that link. It's I think we also dropped it into the chat there, but how strong is your mental fitness? Checkyourcompass.org/assessment. Okay, in a minute, I'm going to go over our 7 week program. And our 7 week program gives most people that do it about a 40% boost in their mental fitness. Like I said, some people have gotten even a 100% boost. But before I do that, I'm curious if there's any questions or comments about what we've covered so far. So if you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the chat there. We'll see if we can answer those before we move on. What questions have come up or what have you discovered tonight? Or drop us a comment into the chat there. And while you're doing that, I will mention that because you came here, it's because you want to see some lasting change in your life. What's really important is that you not just have insight. We gave you about 20% of change tonight by giving you some insight, but we also gave you we worked your mental muscles. And that's what's required in order to have positive, lasting change. And so those PQ reps that we showed you, those mental fitness reps, are going to be required to build your mental muscle. There's at least three muscles in your brain that need to be built up in order for you to get to your goals. And the 7 week program that we've developed helps people build those muscles. And I want to show you what it did for me. I just want to make sure. Okay. Is it possible to overdo PQ reps or do too much? Okay, so I will answer that, yes and no. Uh, Why are we doing them? Are we doing them because we're fearful that if we don't, then something bad's going to happen? Like I have what's called the stickler saboteur, and the stickler saboteur is always measuring things, always like trying to make sure everything's perfect, right? So when I first learned about this, I had to be careful that I wasn't doing all the things because my stickler told me I had to do them. That is a lot of pressure. And I had to say, no, I get to do these things. This is a peaceful thing, not a pressured thing. So what I want to say though is I don't think it's possible to overdo them. So long as you can quiet your stickler and doing the PQ reps, honestly, will quiet the stickler. So that's a good thing. I don't think it's possible to overdo them. You're going to need about 15 minutes of these every single day in order to get where you want to go. And that's what this chart is showing us here. That's the mental muscle. You need at least 15 minutes of these every single day. Let me show you yeah, any other questions or comments, please drop them into the chat there. Great question. Here is what my mind looked like in 2023 after 3 years of helping people really hard during COVID. 55% of the time, my mind was serving me with empathy and gratitude and curiosity and joy, creativity and calm. But 45% of the time, I was feeling stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, disappointment, shame, guilt, you name it. So if you think about it, I was only working with half of my brain. No wonder I couldn't get this project done. I did a 1 year project, but it took me 2 years. And after 2 years, I wasn't done, and I was nowhere near being done. I didn't know how I was going to finish it. After 6 weeks of doing the things that I showed you tonight and learning some other things along the way, this is what actually happened to my brain. My brain started serving me 71% of the time and only sabotaging me 29% of the time. I didn't quite get to that 75% mark that we were talking about, but I was well on my way there and over time have been able to get up to 75%. And let's see. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here is at the end of our meeting, I'm going to preview what we call unlocking mental fitness. The unlocking mental fitness experience, and I'm going to show you what that's all about. Uh, this program combines biblical truth and neuroscience to help you rewire your brain for breakthrough that we've been talking about tonight. And if that sounds like something your soul needs, then I'd love to share more with you after we pray. And so the prayer is going to come from this beautiful prayer I love called the Serenity Prayer. I learned it from the 12-step tradition. Alcoholics Anonymous is one group that uses this prayer, except they don't do the whole prayer normally. They just do the first few lines, but I found the whole thing to be enriching for me. So I'm going to pray this prayer, and then if you want to leave, you're welcome to. I will ask you to do one thing before you leave, and so let me say the prayer, then we'll get to that, and then I'll preview our unlocking mental fitness for those who want that. So the prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time and enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Great. Now, the one thing I want to ask you to do if you are going to leave is I'm going to put a link into the chat there. If you found this helpful tonight, I would be grateful for a 5-star review of this webinar on Google. Because if you do that, then when people look for Christian counseling in and near the Boston area, then they might find me and Quinn. We might be able to help them. It's one of the few ways that we can help and get the word out better. So if you found this helpful, hit that link there in the chat and leave us a 5-star review and tell people what you learned about it. Mention mental fitness in there, that kind of thing. That'd be great. All right. For those who want to stick around, I'm going to talk about unlocking mental fitness. Uh, with the Unlocking Mental Fitness program, one of the things that we do is that we give you access to a special app. If you were to purchase this app from the company, the Positive Intelligence Company, it costs $9.95 for you to get the app from them. We're going to give that to you as part of the process. And the reason for that is the app is going to help you get that 15 minutes a day of building your new neural pathways that I talked about as necessary. The app actually guides you to do that. 2 or 3 minutes at a time during the day, throughout the course of the day, you end up getting your 15 minutes. And we're also going to teach you a lot of the things that we were hinting at tonight. We teach in this program. And so you have access both to Quinn and I. We're going to be there to daily coach you. Inside the app, we have a special channel just for the group of people that we're working with during the 7 weeks. And in there, we're going to give you coaching, encourage you, give you accountability to make sure you're getting that 15 minutes of practice every day. And if things are, if you need us to help you tweak some of the exercises or change them or help you with your routines, we're going to do that because we want you to get the most out of this. So then what we do is we meet weekly for a coaching session with all the people in our group. And so we'll meet on Zoom and we're going to integrate our Christian faith in with this program. And so a lot of that work is done in our weekly meetings and also in our daily interactions in the app. The other thing that we do is we give you the two assessments I already gave you tonight, which is the Saboteur assessment and the PQ assessment. Those are integral to our program, so we'll give those to you. And we're also going to give you the PDF and the audio resources that go with it. There's a best-selling book called Positive Intelligence. We give you that book in a PDF form, and we also give you the audio book so you can listen to it if you'd rather do that. And then we have the small group experience that Quinn and I lead, but there's also a larger PQ community. Everybody that's doing positive intelligence at the same time that we are during that 7 weeks, you have access to all those people who are all over the world who are doing this program. So you can interact with people literally all over the world during that 7 weeks, which I love because I've met so many people from all over the world who are dealing with very different problems than I am. And sometimes I realize my problems aren't as big as what some people in other parts of the world are dealing with. So if you add up all the time and energy and resources that Quinn and I are going to offer to you during this, it'd be about, $4,000 or $5,000 worth of our time and resources for the group. But because we spread the cost with all the people that are in the group, the cost of the group is $9.95 for whoever does the group with us. This is a 7 week group. The next one that we're going to do starts on March 9th, and the deadline is March 6th at midnight in order to get into that group. We have our weekly meetings on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. It's a 1 hour meeting, and every once in a while, people aren't able to make Mondays or they have to miss a Monday. We record all the meetings so that you can watch them afterwards if you were to miss a meeting. So, if that's something you want to learn more about, put up this scan code there, or I'll also stick this link into the notes here for the chat. Um, you can go over to that website there, bit.ly/mental fitness unlock. And you'll find there that we have some partners that provide the funding for you. They'll provide the money for you to sign up for the group on there in our checkout process. And many of them have 0% interest. All of them have 0% interest plans, like 3 or 4 payment plans. Some of them go out as much as 6 months, no interest. So if you want to enroll for the program or check those funding partners out, you can do that by going to that website. Also, my information is there, Vinnie at checkyourcompass.org, as well as my phone number and our website. If you want to schedule to talk to me about this, you can go to my schedule there at checkyourcompass.org schedule to meet with me and chat with me about this.